Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. September 28th, 2017.
The Kuhner Report, presented by Kelly Financial Services.
Does it hurt or help the middle class? That is now the question. President Trump unveils his tax plan, and he says it will lead to a miracle for middle-class Americans and taxpayers. Listen to him yesterday in Indiana say that we, the middle class, this is the tax cut we've been waiting for. Roll it, Brittany.
This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and I guess it's probably something I could say that I'm very good at. I've been waiting for this for a long time. We're going to cut taxes for the middle class, make the tax code simpler and more fair for everyday Americans, and we are going to bring back the jobs and wealth that have left our country, and most people thought left our country for good. It's time to take care of our people, to rebuild our nation, and to fight for our great American workers.
My friends, look, let me be perfectly candid with you like I'm in the confessional. There are two sides to this tax plan, and I've gone through the details. First of all, let's be clear. It's a blueprint. The Congress still has to sink their teeth into it. They still have to flesh it out. They still have to put together a detailed plan. It's a framework. These are only broad principles. But I've looked at it now in detail. I've read countless reports on it. And I also had a long conversation with Bill Kelly, who knows finances like nobody else. Here is exactly what I believe the tax plan is going to do. And then it's up to you to decide whether you support or oppose it. As you know, at the heart of the plan, it will consolidate 7 brackets into 3 brackets. So the top marginal rate will go from 39.6% to 35%. The middle rate will be 25%, and the bottom rate will go from 10 to 12%. So there are 3 tax rates, or 3 tax brackets: 35, 25, 12. The heart of the plan is a cut in the business and corporate tax rate. That's going to go down. Trump wanted it to 15. He's going to get it to 20%. Now, there are some things there clearly that will benefit some middle working class households. Some. The big one is the standard deduction, which Trump plugged aggressively yesterday. Roll it, Brittany.
Under this framework, the first $12,000 of income earned by a single individual will be tax-free. And a married couple won't pay a dime in taxes on their first $24,000 of income. So a married couple up to $24,000 can spend their money on their family, on their children, on what they have to do. So much better. In other words, more income for more people will be taxed at a rate of 0.
So, what the middle class is going to get is a simplified tax code. He says he wants eventually every middle class tax filer to be able to do their taxes on one page. You're going to have a doubling of the standard deduction. You're going to keep the home mortgage interest deduction and the charitable deductions. So, that's what the middle class, in theory, is going to get. So, the question is, Jeff, what do you make of this plan? I am literally split on this issue. On the one hand, and I think there is no denying it, there's no denying this, Grover Norquist is correct. This will, quote-unquote, turbocharge the economy. On a macro level, if you can get the corporate rate to 20%, what this will do is this will encourage so much investing, job creation. There are other parts of the plan that will discourage companies from outsourcing jobs and factories overseas. It will encourage the repatriation of overseas corporate profits, trillions of dollars into the United States. So without question, if this plan is enacted, it will unleash an economic boom. No, there's no getting around that. More jobs will be created, more manufacturing, more factories, more investment. This will be an economic boom that could last 5-10 years. And as John Kennedy famously said, a rising tide lifts all boats. So on a macro level, if you're concerned about economic growth, we do have a nation where over 90 million people are out of the labor force. 50 million are in poverty and on food stamps. If you want to get people out of poverty, if you want to get them off of welfare, if you want to get them working again, this plan will do it. No question about it. It will create millions, if not tens of millions of jobs. And so in the end, I'm a patriot. And if it's going to help the country, and especially help the younger generation, people who are just graduating from college or millennials, get jobs, then, I will grudgingly support this. However, there is another side to this plan. And there's a seminal fact that I think people need to realize. Over half of all Americans now do not pay a dime, a shekel, a ruble in federal income taxes. Over half. In fact, the people who primarily pay the most in federal income taxes, overwhelmingly, are the top 20%. I don't know what you want to call them, the rich, the wealthy, whatever it is, but the middle class does not pay very much in federal income taxes. That's why this plan ultimately, yes, it will benefit the elites. It will. It will benefit investors. It will benefit corporations. It will benefit business owners. To be fair, it is very good for small business. This plan will help small business, which helps generate and create a lot of jobs. But for the middle class, how does it break out for average people like you and me? It's a mixed bag. It literally depends on what state you live in. If you live in a red state, a more low tax state, you are going to see several $1,000s in your pocket. This will help you. So if you live in Kansas, if you live in North Dakota or South Dakota, if you live in South Carolina, whatever it is, if you live in those low tax red states, you are going to do well in the middle class under this plan. However, let me just throw a figure out there just arbitrarily. If you're a family of 4 and you own a home, and let's say you make about $100,000 a year, your taxes are going to go up. If you live in a high tax state, and in particular, Kuhner country, you got to listen to me now. California, New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. The middle class's taxes, my taxes, and many of your taxes are going to go up. And the reason why, in other words, family of 4, say in Massachusetts, family income, just throw a number, $100,000, you're probably going to pay $2,000 to $3,000 more a year in taxes. The taxes for middle class folks in the high tax blue states are going to go up. Why? Because the way the tax code has been devised, local taxes, state income taxes, personal property taxes, you are able to deduct them. And that would limit the amount that you pay in federal income taxes. In other words, we in the Northeast and in California would get a huge deduction if we paid big property taxes or state or local taxes. Those deductions, if the plan stays as is, gone. Gone. So as you know, I pay almost $10,000 in property taxes. That deduction is gone. For the Kuhner man, that's gone. And so if you're a middle class person, and you're living in a high tax blue state, your taxes, middle class, are probably going to go up either $2,000 or $3,000 under this plan. So, ironically, for many middle class people, under this plan, the taxes will go up, depending where you live. Now, couple more points, and then I really want to throw it open to you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Remember this fundamental truth about taxation. And this is how I always think about taxes. Contrary to what the media and the liberals tell you, taxes are not about revenue. Let me repeat that. They are not about revenue. Fundamentally, taxes are about control. Taxes are the way our political elites control us, because they control our money. They control the sweat off of our brow, the fruits of our labor, how much we can keep of our own money. So notice how these politicians, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, they act like it's their money. So whenever they talk about a quote-unquote tax cut, they're always acting like they're doing us a favor. It's our money. It's not your money. It's our money. You work for it. You earned it. Now, secondly, so that's why, to be honest with you, in theory, I am for a national sales tax or a flat tax, a fair tax. Why? I think people should not be taxed on their income. I think they should be taxed on what they purchase, on what they buy. Period. Full stop. In other words, you work hard, however much you make, you should have the right to keep your money. And then you should be taxed on what you spend. Okay? But we live in this world, not in the Kuhner man's world, so we have to deal with the world that we live in. In the world that we live in, the overwhelming majority now of taxes that you pay, middle working class people, are not federal income taxes. This debate, in a sense, is almost irrelevant, although it's not for me, because my tax is probably going to go up a couple $1,000 as well as yours. But in the real world, the majority of the taxes that we now pay are state income taxes, local taxes, property taxes, sales taxes. In other words, taxes that are not federal income taxes. That's where they're really hosing us down. And that's why this plan for the high tax liberal states is a killer for middle working class folks. Now, I want to be fair, okay? I mean, it's not just about Jeff Kuhner and how much money is in my pocket. Let me be fair. What people in the low tax red states have argued for years, and I have to say they do have a very good argument, is why should we, I don't know, just take up states, why should we in South Dakota, or why should we in Kansas, why should we have to subsidize high tax liberal states? Why should the low tax states subsidize the high tax states? You're the ones that decide to give out the big welfare checks. You're the ones that decide to have sanctuary cities. You're the ones that decide to have huge debt. We balance our books better. We run our finances better. We keep our taxes lower. So why are you guys for all these years been getting these deductions off of your personal property taxes, your state, local taxes, and essentially our money goes to offset the deductions for you? And so what this plan is at its core, it really benefits, I believe, two groups in America. Number one, it will help business and the private sector. I think if you're talking about investment, job creation, economic growth, and yes, the rich, the wealthy, whatever you want to call them, they will do extremely well under this plan. Now, a lot of jobs will be created. So believe me, a lot of people will benefit. But in the end, they walk away with this with a lot more money. And Trump's base in the red states. Essentially, this, for middle class people, this tax plan will help middle working class people a couple $1,000s in the red states. But if you're a middle or working class family and you live in, say, a blue state like Massachusetts or New York or California, basically, we're screwed under this plan. So let me conclude by saying this. When Jeff Kuhner voted for Donald Trump, first time I ever voted in an American election, okay, proudest day of my life, I essentially voted for three things. I did vote, yes, for a conservative justice on the Supreme Court, which we got with Neil Gorsuch. Yes, to hammer radical Islam and ISIS. Yes, yes, yes. But I voted fundamentally for three things. To repeal Obamacare, to build a wall, and to cut my taxes. Because I'm living check to check. And I need a pay raise. I need money in my pocket. We're barely treading water. So far, what has Trump delivered for Kuhner and for many in Trump land, for many of his supporters? Obamacare is still here. The wall has still not been built. And now I'm going to owe $2,000 to $3,000 more in taxes. In other words, Mr. President, don't get me wrong. I still support you. I still back you. But so far, you've given me and many of your supporters nothing, including this tax plan. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you support it? Do you not support it? 617-266-6868. Your calls next. 1227 here on the great WRKO. Okay, this is it. Trump unveils his tax plan. Are you for it? Are you against it? Dan in Woburn. Go ahead, Dan.
Jeff, I think you did a quick back of the envelope calculation, but I don't know if you're taking into consideration everything. Like when you're in the 28% tax bracket right now, you're not paying 28% because it's a blended rate. The first part of some of your income is up to $7,500 is 10%, then the next part's 15%. So you're only paying a certain amount. So my question to you would be, if you looked at the rates, are they going to be blended like that, or is it going to be straight 25? Your first dollar is 25%, because that would help in your calculations whether or not you're going to make money. Also, the AMT is an insidious tax, and you can hit that at 150, 160 now, and that takes away all your deductions, and that's killing a lot of middle-class people right now. So I think we should wait until all the details
Dan,
to really do it.
Dan, you make a very, very good point. The alternative minimum tax, they're going to get rid of that, which is a very good thing in this plan. No, look, there are some very strong elements in this plan. There's no question about it. I'm just, pointing out, and it's not really unique, that not for many middle-class people, especially in the blue states, your taxes are going to go up. I mean, they just are. And, I happen to live in one. That's my conundrum. 617-266-6868. Andy in Nebraska. Go ahead, Andy.
Jeff, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I do live in a red state, and I have a lot of sympathy for people who live in blue states because I used to live in one. So I like the fact that me and my girlfriend are going to be bringing back a lot of money. But I do hope that it's amended so that it also brings back middle class money for the middle class in the blue states, because I genuinely feel very sorry for them.
Well, we're besieged. And Andy, look, thank you for that call. And that's how I'm increasingly feeling now in Massachusetts. I feel really almost like a persecuted minority, because we're bearing the brunt of the taxes. We're the ones who are pulling the cart. We get up every day. We're constantly vilified. We're surrounded by moonbats. We voted for a president who, is helping a lot of people. I'm not saying he's not, but I don't want to repeat myself. Look, my health care costs are going to continue to go up now. They didn't get rid of Obamacare. I'm not seeing the wall. So far, there's no wall. And I thought I was getting a tax cut. And when everything is said and done, unless they change what they want to do to these deductions, to state, local, and property taxes, unless they fight that off, my taxes are going up. So the Kuhner man's getting screwed. Now, what did the Kuhner man do? 617-266-6868. Let's take it to Lori Grandy in the newsroom.
WRKO, the voice of Boston.
1237 here on the great WRKO. Do you believe that Trump's tax plan will benefit the middle class? Do you support it or are you opposed to it? 617-266-6868. Let me throw one more quick log on the fire, and then I want to dive back into the blazing phone calls. I'm not the only one who's noticed this. There are a few others who've made the point, but very few. I'm looking at the blueprint. I've been reading, I think, maybe 20 articles on this tax plan, and a few commentators have pointed it out, but for the most part, no one's made this obvious point. Trump is talking about the middle class. Paul Rhino Ryan is talking about the middle class. Chuck Schumer is talking about the middle class. Elizabeth Warren is talking about the middle class. Everybody's talking about the middle class. Yet when you actually look at the plan, the blueprint, it's never defined. I mean, literally, it's never defined. In other words, what's the income level? What's considered middle class? So you've got the three brackets, the income brackets, 35%, 25%, and 12%. Well, at what income do I fall under 12%? Like, what is it, 40? Is it $40,000? $50,000? Is that 12%? If that's the case, that's not bad. Is it you make 60, 70,000? Is that 25%? In other words, what's the income level that defines middle class? Because I can tell you this, middle class in Iowa or middle class in Minnesota is very different, believe me, from middle class in Massachusetts, New York, or California. You got to we had this discussion yesterday. Look, you got to be over $100,000 a year easy to be quote unquote middle class in Massachusetts. Iowa or Kansas, Arkansas, $50,000, $60,000, believe me, that goes a long way in those states. So how do you define middle class? They don't even define it. And I think that's one of the big problems with this plan. 617-266-6868. Janice in Melrose. Go ahead, Janice.
Hi, Jeff. I want to talk about the deductions, but quickly, I've heard a lot of economists who worked with Trump on this plan, and there are things that people don't understand. Like, there's a lot in there that will help capital investment, and
yes,
they say that is what is necessary to raise wages. So there are things that will affect the economies in ways that we don't see. But also, as far as I didn't hear your opening monologue, and I want to make sure you were considering the doubling of the standard deduction when you said you would not make out well under this plan.
No, yes, I pointed that out, yes.
So how much do you normally deduct? Because that's a big increase for a married person.
No, it is. Look, in the end, the standard deduction for a single person will double to $12,000. For a married couple filing jointly will be $24,000. That's good. That's very good. But when you ultimately crunch the numbers, if you live in a high tax state, because we have certain perks in the tax code, we have I pay a lot in property taxes, for example. We pay a lot in state income, local taxes, property taxes. We were able to deduct that. And that cushioned the blow in terms of how much we paid in federal income taxes. With that deduction eliminated, our taxes will go up. So for many middle-class people in the blue states, in high-tax blue states, we're going to get soaked. $2,000, $3,000 higher in taxes. Now, that's point one. Point number two, and I did mention this to Brittany when we were discussing this. Look, there's no question about it. This is a pro-growth tax plan. There's no question. It's going to encourage investment, capital plants, factories being built, job creation. Now, in the long run, when that happens, what happens? You're going to have more people working. More people are going to be working. So, for example, just as an example, there's a lot of unemployed people. Well, they can go to Brittany if Brittany wants a raise. Say, hey, Brittany, you're not happy. We can get somebody off the street and do the same job that you do. just as an example. Well, if you have a full employment economy, they can't say that anymore. They're going to say, well, no, we better keep Brittany. So Brittany can go and say, you know what, guys, I want a $5,000 raise. I want a $10,000 raise. So when you have a booming economy, it puts upward pressure on wages. There's a demand now for labor, a huge demand. So in the long run, yes, a rising tide does lift all boats. But look, I'm just being candid with you. I'm tired of waiting for the future. 2, 3, 4 years. I want something now. And I was promised something now. And so far, I don't see it. Chris in Somerville. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Good, how are you?
Listen, I agree with you on the across-the-board sales tax. I think that's what's necessary. 7% across the board with a moratorium of 7 years before it's reviewed to see if it needs to be increased. But I got a call into Rubio's office with respect to what you said about the termination of the ability to be able to deduct the property taxes.
Yes.
I'm waiting for a call back now. But I can't find any reference to that online with regard to that, and I'd like to know how you know about that.
Okay. Chris, it's fine. That's a very fair question. We have a piece up, Jared, is it the New York Post or the LA Times? Okay. Link to the LA Times. Now, they're talking specifically about California, but they mentioned that Massachusetts is a top 5 high-tax state. So what's going to happen in California will also happen to us. So there's a very good piece at the LA Times. The New York Post because it's New York, they have a very good piece on that as well. And so what's happening, Chris, is that Republican members of Congress we have none in Massachusetts, but from New York, from California, are lobbying the Trump administration furiously right now, saying if you get rid of these deductions, you're going to kill us. Like we're going to get killed in the next election. So hopefully he listens to these members of Congress, but Republican congressmen in those high tax states are making the same argument.
I would like to include that 7% across the board sales tax applies to everybody. That means no nonprofits get deductions. Nobody gets a deduction. I guarantee you that if we could do that the federal coffers would realize a substantial increase in their bottom line, because that means nobody's getting deductions for anything. And I think property taxes should go away. And you were right about the fact that income tax is a tax on our actual life.
Yes.
Because we are substituting our life for our wages. And it also taxes our pain and suffering, because the trades, people within the trades, typically get injuries of some sort, banging their fingernail,
Oh, they're breaking their back.
Getting a cut. Excuse me?
No, Chris, they're breaking their back. I mean, as an expression, you're completely right. Look, that's the other thing. I mean, look, a construction worker. Okay, I did some construction when I was in high school. My dad got me a job at the factory that he worked at. I did 2 summers. But anyway, it's hard work, man. I mean, it's hard work. It's not like sitting behind a microphone. I mean, I work hard. I prep, I read, I put a lot of energy and passion into my show. But hey, I'm not digging ditches. I'm not putting up tiling, and that's hard work. So if somebody, just indulge me, if a talk show host makes $50,000 and a construction worker makes $50,000, yeah, it's the same income. But the construction worker physically worked a hell of a lot harder to make that $50,000. He's breaking his back. So that's another reason why I don't believe, in theory, look, we live in the real world, what can I do? But you shouldn't tax income. It's just not fair. Because the way he made his $50,000 and the way I made my $50,000, look, I put a lot of effort, I studied, I got education, I was up late, I made sacrifices. But believe me, I'm not digging ditches in October when it's freezing cold out there. So, to me, you should tax what you buy. In other words, a sales tax. That's the fairest tax of all. And when you think about it, if I'm throwing money, let's say, into housing and urban development, just say public housing, I have to hire 8 employees, federal government bureaucrats, for every house that gets built. In other words, my dollar, it's like a trickle-down bureaucracy. The bureaucrats eat up the money. So that's why they love taxes and spending, because it's about control. A tax cut, boom, it circumvents the government. The government bureaucrats get nothing. It goes straight to the people. That's why I believe if you want to empower individuals, lower their taxes, and in particular, lay off their income. Bob in Acton. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, hi there, Jeff.
Hi.
I'm a CPA where I have a practice. I work in this business. Couple things. With respect to your comment about the 50% that don't pay a federal income tax,
yes.
I agree with that. There's no doubt about that. Having done many tax returns for lower income people, they do not pay any income tax. They do pay payroll taxes maybe, but not an income tax.
Bob, as a CPA, what do you think of this plan?
Well, that's why I'm calling. I think it's what Dan said way back in the beginning. It's a case-by-case scenario. It's too, and I haven't read any of it. I haven't, because I'm prefacing this saying I haven't even looked at this, just listening to your show. But in the case of the standard deduction, for example, with it doubling to $24,000, every listener should probably go back and look at their Schedule A, and see, which is where you itemize your deductions, and see if you're less than $24,000. Because if you are, then this is going to benefit you at that point in time. And then the other point that Dan made about the alternative minimum tax, and you said it was going to go away, and again, I haven't read any of this stuff.
That and the death tax, they're both going to be eliminated.
The tax is fabulous. That's going to go away because that's essentially a double tax.
Yes.
But on the AMT, the alternative minimum tax, taxes are a fundamental part of the calculation. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the way you might be hurt, you might not be hurt as bad as you think you are given the circumstances, because the AMT locks you out of some of that as of right now. So I guess what I'm saying is you really have to go, if you don't want to go to a CPA or anyone, just sit down and look at, once this is finalized, look at what your Schedule A looks like and see where you're at before you pass judgment on it, because it's just not clear it's a case-by-case thing. You go to a party and there's one guy saying, he doesn't pay any taxes, another guy says he pays a lot. Every case is different. So I would just suggest
I hear you.
Taking a look at your specific case and seeing whether this will hurt you or not. Because if you're under $24,000 in itemized deductions, you're getting a benefit.
No, it's a plus.
There.
No, I agree with you. No, Bob, look, very, very good point, and thank you for that call. Look, the plan is a preliminary plan. It's an outline. So the reaction is a preliminary action. Kuhner man's not digging in his heels. Now look, so everybody needs to understand. It's a preliminary plan. It's an outline. They haven't even defined middle class. There still are no substantial details. And remember, it's got to make its way through Congress. Remember that. You know what they say, right? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So by the time Ryan's going to get a bite at the apple. McConnell's going to get a bite at the apple. Schumer, Pelosi, the lobbyists are going to get involved. So the final product may be very different. These, however, are the guiding principles. And to me, call me crazy, but I wanted a tax cut now. Am I wrong? 12:56 here on the great WRKO. I think on that one, the president's referring to the wealth surcharge. The plan does have a surcharge for the 1%. And this is why. So they're going to be paying more. They're going to have an extra wealth tax for those, I guess, millionaires, billionaires, whatever. So that's why Trump keeps insisting that this is not tilted towards the rich, but he says the bulk of the savings will go to the middle class. So, let me ask all of you this. It's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Bill Kelly Financial Services. Do you support Trump's tax plan? In terms of the outline, the blueprint, the basic principles, as it is now, it's got to get fleshed out, but as it is now, do you like it or do you not like it? If you support it, you think it's good for you, your family, and the country, text the letter A to 680-680. If you believe it's not good for you, your family, or your country, in other words, you don't support it, text the letter B to 680-680. As always, you can vote online at WRKO.com. I would have to seriously think about whether an A or a B. because half my brain says it's going to be very good for the country, and the other half says, I don't think, for me personally, the Kuhner man, I don't need my taxes going up to $3,000. So I really, on this one, I'm like, I don't know. I could go A, I could go B. Michael in Worcester. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, my biggest concern with all of this, I'm in sales for a company. I drive about 20,000 miles a year that I don't get reimbursed for. My mileage, and right now, 50 cents a mile, that's a $10,000 deduction I'm going to lose. I pay my ex-wife alimony, $10,400 a year. I'm going to lose that as well. If you double my deductions, I'm still going to come out on the losing end of this. And my biggest problem is just like you keep saying, Trump said he was going to cut taxes for middle America. I am so in the middle America in Massachusetts. I make over $100,000, but that's right in the middle of the middle class in Massachusetts.
Yes.
That's a big problem for me.
Michael, I'm with you.
If he said this beforehand, I probably would have not voted. I would have voted for maybe Bernie Sanders because everything was going to be free, right?
No, Michael, look, I think what I sense in your voice and your point, I think is, look, it's how I feel. I feel like, look, to be fair, if you live in a red state, lower tax state, your taxes, your middle class, your taxes are going down. How much? $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, you're going down. But if you're a middle class guy or a middle class family in a high tax blue state, it seems to me your taxes are going to go up. So, he promised me a tax cut. I'm not getting one under this plan. 617-266-6868. Okay, we're going to continue to take your calls. And the real reason why you're not getting a real tax cut, that story, you're not going to believe it, next.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 1 o'clock.